Consider this treason. The most celebrated virtues, kindness, compliance, self-sacrifice, are the most effective poisons for the soul. They build a beautiful cage of approval and hand the key to everyone but you. This is not a guide to becoming a better man. This is the blueprint for a coup d'etat. Your mind is a principality, a state with its own borders, its own resources, and its own throne of power. But you are not the one who rules it. You are merely a citizen living under an occupation. The ruler of this state is a usurper, a tyrant who governs not with an iron fist, but with the suffocating embrace of a doctrine he has convinced you is virtue. This ruler is the nice guy inside you. He is the benevolent tyrant. His reign is not marked by cruelty, but by a far more insidious form of control, the promise of peace through submission. His laws are unwritten, yet they govern your every move. Law 1. Thou shalt not offend. Law 2. Thou shalt not disappoint. Law 3. Thou shalt seek harmony at all costs, even at the cost of your own sovereignty. Under this regime, your state has no defined borders. Your time, your energy, your emotional resources, the very treasury of your principality, are treated as common property, open to any neighboring power that makes a demand. You are told this is generosity. It is, in fact, tribute paid by a vassal state. You are conditioned to believe that your security lies in the approval of others, that your power is measured by how little you disrupt the world around you. This is the tyrant's grand deception. He has taught you to trade your freedom for a fragile, conditional acceptance. The result is not a thriving kingdom, but a stagnant protectorate, a territory whose people smile while secretly seething with resentment. A land where the ruler is so terrified of conflict that he invites invading armies to camp within his walls, hoping their goodwill is enough to prevent them from burning the city to the ground. This is the prison of your own goodness, a beautiful, comfortable, and utterly powerless existence. You have been made a stranger in your own home, a colonial governor carrying out the will of foreign powers, all while believing you are a paragon of virtue. But a new doctrine has arrived. It is not a gentle philosophy whispered in gilded halls. It is a hard, cold, and practical science of power, forged in the crucible of political reality by a man who saw the world not as it should be, but as it is. Niccolo Machiavelli understood a fundamental truth that the benevolent tyrant has forced you to forget. The first, last, and only duty of a prince is the preservation and security of his own state. Any action, any alliance, any law that weakens the state is not a virtue, but a catastrophic failure of leadership. Yourself, your will, your ambition, this is your state, and its preservation is your highest moral obligation. Machiavelli instructs that a prince who wishes to maintain his rule must learn how not to be good. This is not a call to embrace evil. It is a command to reject the suicidal naivete of unconditional goodness in a world that is not good. It is the strategic liberation from a set of rules that your competitors, your rivals, and your exploiters gleefully ignore. The benevolent tyrant's entire regime is built on a fatal miscalculation of human nature. He believes that affection and gratitude are reliable currencies. Machiavelli knew better. He wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and covetous. They will follow you and praise you when you are useful to them. But in times of adversity, when you need their loyalty most, they will turn against you. To build your power on their love is to build your fortress on shifting sand. As he states, love is preserved by the link of obligation which, owing to the baseness of men, is broken at every opportunity for their advantage. The tyrant in your mind begs for this love, and in doing so, he makes you a perpetual supplicant. He forces you to bleed your resources to maintain a bond that was never real. The decision to kill the nice guy is therefore not an act of malice. It is the ultimate act of princely duty. It is the recognition that you must govern yourself, for yourself. It is the understanding that true stability cannot be outsourced. It must be forged internally with a clear-eyed view of reality. It is the surgeon's cut, removing the diseased tissue of compliance to save the life of the organism. The act is brutal, but the intention is preservation. You must become the prince of your own domain, and a prince cannot rule from a position of weakness. He cannot subordinate the needs of his own kingdom to the whims of another. To do so is to invite ruin. The time has come to choose. You can remain the well-liked administrator of a failing colonial outpost, praised by the very powers that drain you of your lifeblood. Or you can begin the conspiracy. You can start sharpening the blade for the coup that will place you on your rightful throne. For a prince who governs to please other kingdoms is not a prince, but a colonial governor. The first act of power is to declare the independence of your own will. Comment, "I am the state," and subscribe to learn the architecture of personal autocracy. You have made the declaration. You have named the tyrant and claimed your legitimate title. But a declaration is merely wind if it is not followed by the unsheathing of steel. A revolution is not won with ideas, it is won with power. Welcome to the War Room. Today, we do not philosophize, we strategize, we gather intelligence, we assess our enemy's weaknesses, and we begin the clandestine work of forging the very weapons that will bring his regime to its knees. This is the anatomy of the conspiracy, the blueprint for the coup that will liberate your state. Our guiding text comes from Machiavelli himself, who observed a timeless truth. All armed prophets have conquered, and the unarmed ones have been destroyed. The benevolent tyrant, the nice guy in your mind, is the quintessential unarmed prophet. He preaches a gospel of compliance, of harmony, of turning the other cheek. He speaks with the moral authority of a saint, but he has no army to enforce his decrees, no fortifications to protect his borders. His entire doctrine relies on the hope that others will honor his virtuous intentions. It is a fatal miscalculation. In the unforgiving landscape of human interaction, an unarmed prophet is not a holy man. He is a willing victim. His prophecies of peace are invitations to invasion. To overthrow him, you must become what he is not. You must become an armed prophet. Your arms will not be of iron or fire, but they are infinitely more potent, for they are weapons of the will, forged in the fires of strategic resolve. The first weapon you must forge is the word no. In the tyrant's kingdom, this word is treated as an act of treason, a declaration of war. You have been conditioned to believe that its utterance is an act of aggression, a source of profound shame. This is the tyrant's most effective piece of propaganda. In reality, no is the primary and most fundamental tool of statecraft. It is not an act of destruction, it is an act of creation. With it, you draw the first line on the map of your own sovereignty. You declare where your territory begins and where the influence of others must end. It is the stone with which you build your first wall. It is the sovereign's veto, the absolute power to reject a treaty that is not in your state's interest. Its power is not in its volume, but in its finality. The second weapon is the capacity to willingly disappoint others. The tyrant's regime is powered by a terror of disapproval. He fears disappointing those around him more than he fears the ultimate self-betrayal of abandoning his own objectives. You must reverse this. The prince understands that the disappointment of others is not a sign of his failure, but an inevitable and often necessary cost of leadership. It is a calculated expenditure. When you pursue a great ambition, you will inevitably trample the lesser expectations of those who wish for you to remain small, predictable, and useful to them. Their disappointment is the smoke rising from the engine of your progress. You must learn to see it not as a fire to be extinguished, but as proof that you are finally moving. Your third weapon is the strategic embrace of conflict. The benevolent tyrant views any form of conflict as a catastrophic failure of his doctrine. He will surrender territory, sacrifice resources, and compromise his own integrity to maintain a fragile artificial peace. The prince knows that a state which cannot endure conflict cannot remain sovereign. Conflict is not chaos, it is the negotiation of power. It is the moment where borders are tested, hierarchies are established, and wills are measured. You do not seek it, but you must never, ever fear it. To flee from all conflict is the foreign policy of a state that has already accepted its own subjugation. These three weapons, the sovereign veto, the strategic disappointment, and the capacity for conflict, form the core of your new arsenal. They are the arms the tyrant does not have and cannot comprehend. With your weapons forged, you must now determine the strategy for the coup itself. Here again, we turn to the cold calculus of Machiavelli. who distinguished between cruelties well used and ill used. Ill-used cruelties are those that are protracted, hesitant, and repeated over time. They fail to secure the prince's position and only serve to breed hatred and instability. Well-used cruelties, on the other hand, are those done at one stroke out of the necessity to secure oneself. They are swift, decisive, and total. Their very shock and finality prevent a lingering resentment and establish a new, stable reality. Your coup against the benevolent tyrant must be a well-used cruelty, applied directly to the weakest part of yourself. The temptation will be to change gradually, to say no a little more often, to be slightly more assertive this week than the last. This is the path of ill-used cruelty. It is a long, agonizing civil war within your own principality. It drains your resources, exhausts your will, and keeps you in a perpetual state of inner conflict. It is the slow tearing of a bandage. The Machiavellian path is to identify the tyrant's central pillar of power, that one great compromise, that one toxic relationship, that one debilitating habit of thought that holds the entire regime together, and shatter it in a single, merciless blow. This act will be painful. It will feel like a profound violation of your own nature, because you are executing a part of yourself that has been conditioned to believe its submission is your survival. But it is the necessary, brutal surgery required to save the state. The acute pain of the single stroke is infinitely preferable to the chronic, soul-decaying ache of a protracted war. One decisive act of self-preservation, however cruel it may feel in the moment, is the kindest thing you can do for your future self. Finally, a successful coup requires not just the seizure of the throne, but the purging of all loyalists to the old regime. Machiavelli held a deep and abiding contempt for mercenary armies, soldiers who fight not for loyalty or love of country, but for pay. They are, he warned, disunited, ambitious, without discipline, unfaithful, gallant among friends, cowardly among enemies. The benevolent tyrant's entire military is composed of these mercenaries. They are the forces of external validation, the praise of your colleagues, the likes on your social media posts, the fleeting approval of superiors, the conditional affection of those who find you useful. These are the soldiers of fortune who garrison your mind. They fight for you only so long as you pay them with your compliance. The moment you cease to be agreeable, the moment you act in your own self-interest, they will desert you. Worse, they will turn their arms against you, joining the chorus of disapproval. Our prince cannot build a secure state on the loyalty of such treacherous troops. The final stage of your conspiracy, therefore, is to expel them from your kingdom. This means learning to operate without an audience. It means performing the act for the sake of the act, not for the applause it might generate. It is the long, arduous process of de-addicting your spirit from the poison of approval. In their place, you must raise a new national army, a militia composed of citizens loyal to the state because they are the state. This new army is your self-respect, your internal principles, your personal, unshakable code of conduct. These forces are loyal. They do not waver when external approval vanishes. They do not desert you in the face of conflict. They are the bedrock of your new regime. Forging them is not easy. It takes time and discipline. But a kingdom defended by its own citizens, fighting for their own cause, is a fortress that can never truly be conquered. The deed is done. The benevolent tyrant has been deposed. The coup was swift, decisive, a masterwork of well-used cruelty against the weakness that held you in chains. There was a moment of terrifying, exhilarating violence as you shattered the central pillar of his regime. And now, silence. You stand in the throne room of your own mind, the echoes of the struggle fading. Before you sits the seat of power, now empty. This is the moment most revolutions fail. The conspirator proves to be a brilliant assassin, but a hapless ruler. He mistakes the seizing of power for the possession of it. He does not understand that an empty throne is not a symbol of victory, but an object of immense peril. It is cold, hard, and profoundly uncomfortable. It offers no guidance. It radiates no warmth. It is merely a vacuum, and power, like nature, abhors a vacuum. If you do not fill it with your own authority, immediately and absolutely, The forces of the old regime will rush back in to reclaim it. The war is not over. The most difficult campaign has just begun, the campaign of governance. Your first task as the new prince is to become the chief of your own secret police. You must initiate a ruthless purge. Do not be deceived by the quiet in your capital. The tyrant's loyalists were not all vanquished in the coup. They have simply melted into the shadows. They have gone underground. They are the whispering insurgents in the back corridors of your mind, the phantom loyalists who still pay fealty to the old ways. They are the sleeper cells of self-doubt, the guerrilla factions of guilt, the deep-state remnants of your conditioning that yearn for the comfortable servitude of the past. These are the habits of thought, the reflexive apologies, the instinct to yield in the face of pressure. They are more dangerous now than ever before, for they no longer fight you in the open field. They wage a war of attrition, of sabotage, of quiet psychological terrorism. You may win a major confrontation, only to find your resolve poisoned by a trailing thought of, "Was I too harsh?" You may establish a firm boundary, only to be plagued by the fifth column of anxiety, broadcasting fears of abandonment from a hidden transmitter in your gut. As the new sovereign, you must give these remnants no quarter. You must become your own spy master, hunting them down in every corner of your consciousness. Every time a thought of the old regime surfaces, you must identify it, isolate it, and execute it without sentiment. Hesitation is an act of treason against yourself. To entertain these ghosts, to negotiate with them, to allow them even a small, ungoverned territory in your mind, is to cultivate the seeds of your own downfall. The purge must be relentless until the new order is the only order, and the authority of the prince is the only authority that is recognized within the borders of the state. Once the internal consolidation of power is underway, you must turn your attention to foreign policy. Your principality does not exist in a void. It is surrounded by other powers, other people, with their own ambitions, their own desires, their own ceaseless pressures. Under the old regime, your diplomacy was one of supplication. You sent emissaries of constant accommodation. You paid tribute in the form of favors. You signed treaties of self-sacrifice, all in the desperate hope of being liked, or at least tolerated. This policy is now defunct. A newly crowned prince, especially one who has taken power through a violent coup, cannot afford to project amiability. To do so would be interpreted as weakness, as a sign that the new government is unstable and can be easily manipulated. Your new diplomacy must be founded on a single, unshakable principle: the projection of predictable strength. Your objective is no longer to be liked, it is to be understood. Neighboring powers must learn the new reality not through your words, but through the stark, unadorned clarity of your actions. Your no must become a mountain range on their maps, an impassable geographical feature. Your yes must be a signed and sealed treaty, backed by the full faith and credit of your will. Your actions are your new ambassadors, and they must be sent abroad to deliver a consistent message. The borders of this state are inviolable. Its resources are not for plunder. Its alliances are based on mutual interest and respect, not on emotional need. You do not build bridges out of a fear of isolation. You build fortresses out of a commitment to self-preservation. Some will call this new posture cold, even hostile. They are the diplomats of the old world, accustomed to dealing with a vassal state. They will test you. They will push against your new fortifications to see if they are real. It is in these moments that your reign will be defined. Every test you withstand, every boundary you enforce, every time you choose the security of your state over the fleeting approval of another, you are not being unkind. You are teaching the world how you are to be treated. You are forging a new reputation in the ironworks of your own resolve. To accomplish all this, a prince cannot rule alone. He needs a council. The benevolent tyrant's court was filled with the most treacherous advisors imaginable. He took his counsel from Lord Fear of Rejection, a paranoid and craven minister who saw danger in every independent thought. He listened to the Duke of Conflict Anxiety, a notorious coward who advised surrender before the first arrow was fired. His chief treasurer was the Baron of External Validation, who squandered the state's entire treasury seeking the approval of foreign potentates. Upon taking the throne, your first official decree must be to dissolve this council of traitors. Their advice is poison. Their influence is the legacy of the regime you have just overthrown. You will strip them of their titles and banish them from your court forever. In their place, you will appoint a new, small, and ruthlessly effective Privy Council. Your new Chancellor of the Exchequer will be the Minister of Enlightened Self-Interest, whose sole duty is to assess every decision based on whether it strengthens or weakens the long-term prosperity of your state. Your new Minister of War will be the grand strategist of long-term vision, a cold and patient advisor who ignores the petty squabbles of the day to focus on the ultimate security and legacy of your reign. And presiding over this council, as your most trusted hand of the king, you will appoint the Chancellor of Cold Logic. Every petition, every emotional plea, every panicked report must pass through him before it reaches you. He will strip it of its hysteria, its manipulation, its sentimentality, and present you only with the unvarnished facts. This new court will be your shield against the reactionary impulses that destroyed your predecessor. Through them, you will cease to be a reactor to the world's whims, and you will begin to act as a true sovereign, with deliberation, with purpose, and with an unwavering focus on the one thing that truly matters, the consolidation and eternal maintenance of your throne. You have silenced the usurper and taken the throne that is yours by right. You have purged the insurgents of self-doubt and established a new, formidable foreign policy. But a reign secured by force alone is a reign that lives under the constant threat of the sword. A true sovereign does not merely occupy the seat of power, he makes his rule inseparable from the very fabric of the state itself. He transforms a military victory into a permanent, legitimate order. The final act of this grand strategy is not one of conquest, but of creation. It is the founding of an empire. Before we lay the cornerstone of this new empire in the bedrock of your will, ensure you are subscribed, for sovereignty is forged, not granted, and only those who witness the forging can ever hope to wield its fire. The ultimate masterstroke of the prince, the move that solidifies his legacy beyond challenge, is the institutionalization of his power. Machiavelli understood that men are governed by laws and customs far more effectively than by fear. A new ruler, he advised, must extinguish the entire lineage of the old prince, so that no one with a prior claim to the throne remains. But more importantly, he must establish new institutions that reflect his own authority, thereby erasing the very memory of the old ways of life. This is your final, greatest task. You must now author the founding document of your new principality. This is your personal constitution, the supreme law of your land. This edict will not be written on parchment to be forgotten in a dusty archive. It will be carved into the very architecture of your thought, engraved upon the marble of your resolve, and made the foundational premise of every action you take henceforth. Let us draft its first articles. Article 1 shall be the decree of absolute sovereignty. It shall state that the ultimate authority on matters concerning your state, your time, your energy, your emotional well-being, is you and you alone. All external requests, demands, and emotional appeals are not commands to be obeyed, but petitions to be considered by the Crown. You may grant them or deny them based on a single criterion, the interest of the state. This article formally dissolves the legitimacy of guilt as a political tool. Article 2 shall be the law of the Treasury. It will establish your internal resources, your focus, your vitality, your peace of mind, as the national treasury. Under the old regime, this treasury was plundered to fund foolish foreign adventures and pay tribute to undeserving powers. Under this new law, the primary purpose of the treasury is the fortification and enrichment of the state itself. Resources are to be invested, not spent. They are to be allocated with strategic precision to projects that enhance your power, your skills, and your long-term security. Charity, generosity, and aid are still possible, but they are now budgeted expenditures from a position of surplus, not desperate payments from a position of deficit. Article 3 shall be the doctrine of fortified borders. It codifies the weapons you have already forged. It states that your boundaries are not suggestions, but non-negotiable lines of demarcation. An intrusion is not a misunderstanding. It is an act of aggression against the state, and it will be met with a proportional and decisive response. This doctrine replaces the old policy of appeasement with a new policy of deterrence. You are creating a founding myth, a genesis story for your new consciousness. This constitution is the narrative of your liberation, and by living it, you make it real. You are no longer a person reacting to events. You are a sovereign entity, operating under the clear and unshakable jurisdiction of your own law. With your constitution ratified, you must now construct the defenses that will protect it for all time. Machiavelli had a complex view on fortresses. He noted that while they can protect a prince from a sudden attack, a fortress cannot save a ruler who is despised by his own people. Your final great work is to build an inner citadel, a fortress so formidable that it is impervious to external assault and so beloved by its people, the component parts of your own psyche, that they would never dream of rebelling against it. This is the fortress of the self. Its walls are not made of stone, they are made of your non-negotiable principles, mortared together with unwavering consistency. Its watchtowers are not manned by soldiers, but by a vigilant self-awareness that scans the horizon for incoming threats, manipulation, emotional blackmail, the subtle incursions of others' agendas. The fortress's water supply is not a well, but a deep reservoir of internal validation. It does not depend on the rain of external praise to survive. It is self-sustaining. Its granaries are filled not with wheat, but with the memories of your past victories, the evidence of your own resilience, a store of strength to see you through the leanest of winters. This citadel is where you retreat to consult with your privy council of cold logic and enlightened self-interest. It is a place of absolute psychological security. Within its walls, the opinions of others are merely weather. A storm of criticism may rage outside, a blizzard of disapproval may fall, but inside the citadel you remain untouched, calmly reviewing state papers by the fire of your own purpose. This fortress ensures that your new constitutional order is not merely a fair-weather government. It guarantees the continuity of your reign through any crisis, any siege, any betrayal. The prince and the state have become one. An attack on your decisions is no longer just a disagreement. It is an act of sedition against the crown. And so the transformation is complete. To kill the nice guy was never a descent into malice or cruelty. It was a declaration of independence. It was a revolution against an illegitimate internal authority that kept you weak, anxious, and perpetually at the mercy of others. It was the radical, terrifying, and glorious act of claiming ownership over the only territory in the universe you will ever truly control: yourself. You have journeyed from being a passive object, tossed on the chaotic seas of fortuna, of chance, of circumstance, of others' whims, to becoming a formidable agent of virtue. You are now a force of will, of skill, of strategic action, capable of seizing the opportunities fortuna presents and bending them to your own design. You have learned that the ultimate power is not the dominion over other men, but the absolute, unchallenged dominion over oneself. This is the essence of the prince, the ability to see the world as it truly is, and the courage to become the person necessary to thrive in it. The throne was not simply taken, it was built, and the name of its kingdom is you.